Back once again, faith and finances, doing wealth on Wednesday. Wow, wealth on Wednesday. And we're talking about building a legacy of wealth, building a legacy of wealth. This is not a simple subject, but we're going to dig into it and at least peel back some of the layers so that we can get into it and discuss it and really talk about this from a standpoint to where people can advance. People can advance. I think one of the things that we don't talk about is there are barriers, there are hurdles, there are things that get in the way, there are roadblocks by design to keep people from obtaining things, but there are also opportunities that if we persist and push through and research and dig our way through, we can find and discover some things. So let me break this down first, just a little bit about myself. I come from a family of savers. Savers. I was taught early on when I first started working, get your paycheck, save, $20, $25 from your paycheck. If you made $100, save $20, put it in the bank, savings account, keep some extra, quote unquote, for a rainy day. And that was savings. My dad with the CD ladders and things of that nature. My grandparents with savings bonds that they had held since World War II. And that was what I was taught. That was what I was shown. And then sometime I had to be in middle school, either 6th grade or 7th grade. I was at that age, and I was with my grandparents when they went to visit my cousin who was a broker for Merrill Lynch, and they were exposed to investing. They were exposed to investing, and I thank God for both my grandparents and my cousin Rex, who is no longer with us. All three of them are no longer with us. But I say that paying homage to them for me being exposed at that early age, about 10 years old, to investing. And I learned so much in that session along with my grandparents about dividend investing. They invested in what was known as Detroit Edison back then, collected a quarterly dividend on their investment where they could generate wealth and continue to generate wealth that was reinvested based upon receiving those dividends and compound and create greater and larger dividends based upon the reinvestment of that wealth. And I learned that. And then I thank God for my transition to San Diego and to Bayview Baptist Church, where under Pastor Winters, I learned about index investing, index mutual funds, and ETFs. I was first exposed to that under Pastor Winters with his teachings, his money sermons on Christian money management through Christian Growth Ministries. And so I spent years transitioning from saving to investing. And I'll never forget this brother I worked with in the school district. He was a janitor. He wasn't even the head janitor, but he was sharing with me about investing in individual stocks, Pepsi, Ford, and I can thank God for what this brother taught me and a few other guys just in a few short sessions about, hey, go down to TD Waterhouse, open your account. This is how you get started. This is how you look at it. This is how you research it. This is how you invest it. And this was long before online investing, very few individual investors and investing platforms. But thank God for that early on, which got me started, because I can remember in my transition from Riverside to San Diego in California, um, young, late 20s, 2 kids, single parent. And I was like, you know what? There's certain things that I'm going to learn more about. And I bought Money Magazine, and I found out that investing didn't require all that. There were investments that were actually $1 per share, money markets. And at that time, they were yielding 6%. Believe it or not, they were yielding 6% at that time. And Alger Fund, David Alger, um, they had a growth fund that was going crazy. And I took the time to go to Louis Rukeyser's Money Show in Las Vegas. And I went there, and I was challenged. I brought my checkbook. That's how old this was. I brought my checkbook. And when I went there, the Alger Fund was there. And I went and I said, well, listen, I've been reading this and I'm not sure about it. Is this true? There's no minimum investment, and there's no minimum investment. All you have to do is have at least $1. And I invested $35. And that got me started. And then I started going into an automatic investment, dollar cost averaging. There's nothing wrong with that. And I started little by little. And that's where I began, and eventually getting into a retirement account as well. And that allowed me to eventually save my mother's house, right? My mother was going through some things, some stuff with her job and her health, and it helped me to help contribute to what was going on in the household as I was transitioning with my kids and my mom and everything in San Diego. All of that fed into that wealth building and setting that up. And so no matter what, I saw the value of investing, of saving, of making sure that there was something set aside, even if it was at sometimes a sacrifice and to an extreme. And so here we go, y'all. Wealth building, um, I'm just going to say it from the heart. Wealth building, it starts at the home, right? We start this whole thing of building a legacy of wealth, generational wealth, and all this. It all starts at home. And when we do it right, and it starts at home, then we're talking about putting it in a place to where we understand as parents, grandparents, that we're not just looking at buying the children Jordans and the latest fashions, but also what do they need down the road? Today is one thing, tomorrow is another thing. And so that's part of it. Wealth building starts at home. Building that legacy of wealth starts at home. And we see this from a lot of different angles. And I say this with all sincerity. There are things that are in place for you not to get there and not to go there. And that's why we have a large amount of advertising for consumerism and not creating wealth. We have a lot of advertising for you to buy now and don't miss out. Amazon Prime Days and Black Friday sales and all these things are set up for you to spend and not save and not invest and not be part of the issue. For people of color, this is what I'm saying. For people of color, if you understand me, we can go from sharecroppers, right? Having a legacy of having been on the downside of things to becoming shareholders, to having a piece of the pie and a piece of what everyone else is owning. We don't have to be on the short end of the stick. We can go from sharecropping to being shareholders. And that's not by mistake. That's not by happenstance. That's real. And if we take this seriously, we can understand that um, my my dad's family, they were migrant workers, and my daddy married the boss's daughter, and so that was part of the trajectory of the family moving into a different status. They still lived on their own. They still had to grow stuff, but here was a group of people, excuse me, who, when I look back, my grandparents built their own house, right? They 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 built their own house, and that was an accomplishment for that generation. And so as we go generation upon generation, we should be growing. We should be going further and further than the family moved before. And so here it is, y'all. Here it is what we're talking about when we talk about generating wealth. One, we've got to understand the text says, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. My dad recently passed, and I'm still dealing with it. But I want to say this: before my dad passed, we were able to talk about some things, and I shared with him on Father's Day, and he was limited in his ability to respond, but I could see that he got it. I told him he didn't have to worry about all the things that he taught me and showed me. Even if he didn't see me implementing them, I was doing them as a father, as a grandfather. I was doing those things that he taught me and showed me and beyond, because of what he instilled in me and what that legacy was that he built with me and that I had attached to with my grandparents and my family. And so I thank God for family and what that's able to do and help us to grow. Look, generational wealth has to be grown. It has to be grown. And you get that from your investments. You get that from how you put money together. You get that from what you share with your children and how to do it, how you expose them at an early age to things that are not necessarily that they're going to get in school. Listen, I want to be honest with you. Here's the reason why we don't get it from the schoolhouse. Here's the reason why we don't get it from the teacher. Here's the reason why we don't get it from um, the educational system. It's not designed for you to be excelling in wealth generating and generational wealth and obtaining it and growing it. That's supposed to be an outlier. What the educational system is designed for is to create a generation of workers. And so you'll hear a lot about that when they talk about skill building in order to get students into a place where they can get good jobs, skill building, so students can get in a place where they have the skills that are required for the new adaptations in the workforce. Well, beyond that, when are we making inventors and innovators and those who will be CEOs and those who will be founders of companies and creating legacies of that nature, who will be generating and building family wealth? And how does that come about? Well, it comes about through different things. Some of it's hard work, some of it's sacrifice, some of it's dedication, but it has to be grown. And you have your biggest growth in your assets through investment and long-term savings. You have to have a long-term time horizon in order to see this. If you're talking about 15, 20 years, Imagine the difference that can be made if you have 15 or 20 years where you paid off most of your house. Look at the difference that's made in the equity that you have in your home. And so begin to think about it in another sense of how you're growing wealth and not just going through the motions. Generating wealth also includes preserving capital and leveraging assets. Like I said, money markets at one point were 6%. Now, if you're scraping together 3% to 4%, you're doing good with money markets and CDs, high yield savings. Leveraging assets. Do you have a home that you're using? Do you have multiple properties that you have? What are you doing with your resources? And so when you're generating wealth, that's including not just preserving your capital, but also leveraging assets. If you want to do something to become like other people, look how they're doing it. And when you look how they're doing it and you see the types of things that they're invested in and how they're utilizing their assets and their resources, it's a lot different than, oh, that's not for us. We don't have that. We can't get into that. If you have enough money to go to the club, buy a round of drinks, get a new outfit, once, twice a month, you've got enough to invest with dollar cost averaging every time you get paid the same way you invest in clubbing, the same way you invest in going out and partying. That's how it works. That's the difference. And if we're not careful, we'll be in a bad position by not accepting the responsibility to do it. Now, wealth can be given as an inheritance. It can be passed on, but that doesn't mean that you've passed on the skills and ability to manage wealth. You've just given a handout. Wealth can be given as an inheritance, but the true inheritance that you want to give your family is passing on the skills and the wisdom of how to handle wealth in order that that wealth continues to grow and continues to pass on to other generations. Put some stipulations in place with your trust, with your will, right? Put some stipulations in place that certain assets can't be sold off in the interim or for a certain period of time or until certain things are in place. Here goes the thing. Ever since I was young, my family's always had property and they've always had, different assets. And here's the problem that we have now. The house that my grandparents built is no longer in my family because when that generation passed, it needed to be settled among another generation, but there were no stipulations in place on how that was settled. I hope you get what I'm saying. And so we lost something because of how things went down. We lost something because of how things went down. And based upon that, that's part of the problem when we talk about asset building. We also don't talk about the retention and growth of assets and leveraging of assets within a lot of structure within the family because we miss that. And then on the back end, we end up losing things. How much more could be done with another asset within the family if everyone wasn't trying to get their piece of it? I know you can't control what someone else does with their assets, but you as a head of household can control what's done with your own. And so what I learned from the passing on of generations is I not only learned what they did, but I also learned based upon what they did, what I don't want to do with my own. And what I don't want to do with my own is leave it to where people are fighting about stuff and arguing about stuff and trying to figure out, oh, well, I should have got this because daddy said, no. It's laid out. It's broken down. And here are the stipulations. Live with it, because these are my assets that I'm passing on to the family. And I'm also building a family trust to where those assets are strictly for family, right? Something happens. Somebody wants to go to college, whatever it might be. Those are family assets. When we have these family reunions, how many of them are set to where we're giving someone a scholarship in the family? How many of these family reunions are set to where we're passing on financial knowledge and information and wisdom and history to a family member and younger family members of a generation below us that are coming up behind us? What's going on? And so we need to look at this and first invest in your own knowledge. Invest in your own knowledge. Get there. Get to where you can build your knowledge and wisdom, your skills and abilities as a parent, and then pass that on to your family unit. Take a class, build skills online, learn about other resources, learn about credit and debt management. Do you know what a FICO score means, right? What does all that have to do with you moving ahead and having assets, having money, building wealth, investing? Do you know what a mutual fund is? What's a mutual fund versus an exchange traded fund? Are those the only things you can invest in? Are there options? Can you invest in crypto? What are the things that you can invest in that can help you and your family down the road? If not, if you don't know, then find out and see if it's something that fits you. It may not fit you right now, but it may help out other folks within your family down the road. I'm just saying. Now, take this into consideration. The skills to do this, the wisdom to do this, should be passed down from generation to generation. Listen, even if they don't want to hear it, share it. Even if they don't say, hey man, how do you do that? Share it. And share it. And if you have grandkids, share it beyond your children, share it with your grandkids. Exposure. There's nothing wrong with early exposure. As I said, early exposure helped me understand the value of investing. After my grandparents invested, they took part of the money that they cashed out from all those bonds. They invested part of that. And then my grandfather bought a Cadillac with cash. The dealer didn't know what to do, right? It was something different, because here was this old man and his wife with a grandkid, and he said, I like that one, test drove it, let me get that, and pay for it in cash. At that time, unheard of. Well, you can finance it, you don't have to do it. No, I got it. Set up the paperwork. Let's do this. Impressive. And that was also something that was taught by Pastor Winters in his Christian money management when I was at Bayview Baptist Church. And so this is something we need to understand. We can do this. It's not that difficult. It's just a matter of how we're going to handle it. Going back to this idea of inheritance. I was raised not to expect anything, and to earn everything. And I thank God for that teaching. I thank God for that being instilled into me. And so with that, what I got out of that was, here, hey, when you generate enough wealth, to support your family, when you generate enough wealth to create an additional income, when you generate enough wealth to pass on as a legacy to another generation, you create a springboard to go along with some skills that can help it not just be money gained hastily, right? That's going to dwindle away and drift away and fall and become nothing a generation later, but it can continue to grow little by little as they apply those skills. So as we do this, let's continue to understand that wealth generation doesn't have to stop at the founding generation. Wealth generation can continue to grow. It can continue to grow beyond you and your current generation. That's what you want. You want to create that legacy that lives beyond you. You want to create that legacy that lives through your children and your children's children, and hopefully beyond that, because they'll continue to pass it on as well. Learn the skills and teach the skills, gain the wisdom and give the wisdom, and let that continue to grow within your family unit and take it beyond your family unit. Can you instill this as something within your church, something within your community, something among a network of friends? Don't you know investment clubs are small groups of people that work together? And so in doing this, put it together in such a manner to where you can see it grow and go beyond where you are. Listen, I was taught get a good job and you'll get a retirement account with that job, a pension at that time is what they talked about. You'll get a pension, and that pension, accept whatever they give you as that pension. Nowadays, you get in a job, like a 401k or whatever it may be, and you have to pick and manage those investments, oversee those, along with whatever you supplement those investments with. And then you also have to believe not only is Social Security going to come into a factor later on, but then also, what are you going to do about medical expenses when you get older? Are you going to still be paying on a house? Are you going to downsize? What are you going to do? Have a plan, have a family plan, as well as set up a family LLC with a family fund to where you can branch that off and use that as a support for what's going to happen with your family down the road. This is something that can be done, and it's something that can be done, and it should be done from generation to generation, but it's going to have to start somewhere. And why should it not start with you? Let it start with you. And when you do it in a manner that helps you to grow your assets, leverage your assets, and build strategies and skills among your children and grandchildren that will live on beyond now. I can't stress this enough. It keeps me up at night sometimes, worrying and wondering, but I also know as I continue to build, I'm building something to where my children and my children's children won't be trying to figure it out and divvy it up. It'll already be in place, and God willing, they'll live with the understanding that I did it with the best intentions, and I did it in the hopes of them living fruitful lives without having to be going through a lot of the ups and downs and pains that even I went through. I hope this helps somebody out there. You can build a legacy of wealth. That legacy of wealth can live beyond you, but you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start by building the skills, gaining the wisdom, and applying it, and start to generate that wealth within your family. That's where it starts. That's how it happens. God bless.